When's the last time that you actually utilized the talents of your team to create strategic goals and actionable next steps? If you're not sure, you need to listen to this episode. Welcome to the More Than ADHD podcast. I'm your host, Coach Ryan, certified ADHD coach and neuroinclusion consultant. And this is episode 30, leveraging the strengths of your neurodivergent team members. Here on the More Than ADHD podcast, we bring you the best of the best, the crème de la crème. That's French for really, really good. And today is no exception because we've got something pretty bold. Someone very bold. Let me just read the bio. Dr. Nicole Scott, friend, fellow entrepreneur, and trailblazer. She's a trailblazer in cultural transformation in the workplace. Sounds a lot like what we do here. She's known for helping high-level leaders and teams to dismantle toxic workplace norms and replace them with people-centric, high-performing cultures where performing and well-being can coexist. Thank you. With over 20 years of experience, Dr. Nicole is sought after for her bold systems thinking approach to leadership development, psychological safety, and strategic team design. She's an expert in creating spaces where neurodivergent minds like ours and diverse voices can all thrive. She's an expert in creating spaces where neurodivergent minds and diverse voices like ours can all thrive and where organizational changes actually stick. How refreshing. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage here on the More Than ADHD podcast, Dr. Nicole Scott.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. This one's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
I'm just so excited to have you on the show. I feel like we should explain to the listeners, to the viewers, how the stars aligned for us to meet and just to give a shout out for our mutual connection.
Yeah, super excited that a good friend of ours, Rita Williams, decided that the two of us should connect. Rita was actually on my team at FedEx when I was with FedEx Ground. She was one of my OD advisors and a fellow strengths coach. When she left FedEx, we stayed in touch. She's actually my coach. And she, the one day, just said, Nicole, you and the path of opening up spaces and having employers welcome neurodivergent talent and embrace what they bring to the table, she's like, you need to be introduced to Coach Ryan Mayer. And we were off. We were off to the races, I think, almost instantly.
And speaking of stories, when I first heard your story about your journey and what brought you to where you are, I just think that was really powerful because I think you've just always been unapologetically you, and that's been awesome, and it's just a lot of fun, honestly, to work with you and talk with you. So, can you give our listeners an idea, just a little bit about the background?
I spent almost 15 years working with Goodwill of Southwestern Pennsylvania. I started working there. Wasn't my first job out of college, but I was pretty fresh out of undergraduate when I started working at Goodwill. And that means I grew up in an environment that just embraced all kinds of diversity. It like just all kinds. Physical disabilities, different brain wirings, different expressions. It was all there. So that was very normal for me. And then, so as I was going through my doctoral program, I started thinking about where did I want to focus some research? What was the burning question that I had? And I realized that the burning question that I had was, what in the world happens to all these gifted people who are identified as wicked smart in school? They're given different work to do, extra work to do, depending on which school district you were in and how good they were at dealing with gifted kids. I mean, gifted kids end up with IEPs themselves. And then it's like they get out of college and they're got like the brilliance doesn't show up. And really gifted folks generally have what I will call, for the most part, very normal life outcomes, nothing extraordinary. And I mentioned this to one of my professors, and he's like, Nicole, you have to do that study. And the study was really what's the meaning and experience of giftedness in the workplace? I'm also a member of Mensa, so like bingo, I had a whole population of my mother had me tested, right? Like and being a member of Mensa, and I brought it to Mensa, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, we'll help. You can recruit from, our membership." So I lived in that dissertation house for 2 years. Lived in that house of qualitative research for 2 years. Made it through. They were like, "Yay, congratulations, you're now Dr. Nicole Scott." And I was like, "Cool." And I started toying with some of that research, and it was like crickets, like nobody cared. People were like, I was like, okay, well, that was fun. Let me just put that on the shelf and let it collect some dust.
Like 2 years, how many did you say? 2 years of your life, just
2 years of
poof. Yeah.
2 years. I was still happy I did it because what I was
Yeah.
really, it was a question I wanted answered for myself. Like,
Yes.
what is this experience of being gifted in the workplace all about? Because I had questions for myself. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't always feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like people understood me when I was communicating. I was sometimes told I was condescending. I'm like, what do you mean I'm condescending? I'm just giving you the facts. Like, I don't understand how that's condescending. And the methodology that I used for that study, this is a big mouthful. It's a heuristic phenomenological investigation. So the heuristic part is I was a participant in my own study. So all of the qualitative data that I collected was being organized and kind of analyzed through my own lens of my own experience. And then phenomenology is the study of some sort of thing. So the phenomenon was being gifted in the workplace.
I want to call time out to rewind a little bit for
Hmm.
all of our listeners, because I know these were questions that I had very early on when we started having conversations. And one of them is, what is the definition of gifted? Because I think a lot of people hear that and it's like, well,
What does
okay,
that mean?
so yeah, what does that mean?
Well, here's the fabulous challenge. There is no standard definition of gifted,
Hmm.
which makes this even harder. To be identified as a child, as a gifted child, typically there is some sort of IQ requirement, which is not standard across all school districts either. Super fun. IQ threshold, they usually are looking at two standard deviations above the norm. So that is roughly at the 130 mark or higher. But they also are looking for some sort of advanced what I'll call performance or a particular talent in a particular area. So a gifted child isn't just a smart child, it's a smart child that is developing faster than peers in a particular area that needs to be nurtured. And that is really the reason for identifying kids as gifted so that they do get access to the IEP that can differentiate instruction and development that is appropriate for them where they are in the particular area where they are showing this exceptional talent.
And so if I'm hearing you right, an IEP, which I always assume to be like for someone who's struggling, can also be used in the inverse, like for someone who's advanced and needs more challenging stuff.
Yeah, at least the district where I'm in, it's called a GIEP. It's a gifted IEP, but it's
Got
an
it.
IEP nonetheless because what it's supposed to do is support, just like an IEP for someone with, a behavioral disorder or something, is supposed to help make sure that they are getting the intervention services that they need and whatever supports they need in order to make sure they can be as successful as they can be in that learning environment. An IEP for someone who's gifted serves the same purpose. It's to make sure that they are getting the support services that set them up to be as successful as possible.
Well,
When
and again, just to help parse apart
Mhm.
the acronyms of alphabet soup for everyone,
Yeah.
uh, IEP stands for Individual Education Plan, just in case you've never
Okay.
heard that terminology. So then a GIEP is Gifted Individual Education Plan. And as Dr. Scott said, it varies by where you are, what school district you're in. And then one other thing that, thanks to our good friends at Google, I was able to get this because I had asked Dr. Nicole a while ago, she's part of Mensa. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's like for smart people. So what does that stand for? It's got to be an
Mm,
acronym. And I looked it up, and it turns out Mensa is Latin for table. And the name was chosen for the Mensa organization because it signifies a round table society
mhm.
where all members are equal,
Yep.
regardless of background. So it's to bring together individuals with high IQs for social and intellectual interaction.
And
I was just talking to somebody who runs a staffing agency, and he was saying that he's really struggling. A lot of the people that were at the Disability In conference who are in the staffing industry,
mhm,
specifically geared towards people with different ways of thinking and different disabilities, they were all saying it was tough. And even some of the recent college graduates that I know
yep.
have said like that the job market is really tough. So what I'm wondering is, from like overall, what were your findings from the research?
First and foremost, the experience at work is frustrating. It's
Mm.
very frustrating. And you can, share from your previous experience if this rings true for you, but it's frustrating to be the person in the room who thinks differently when no one is open to understanding that you think differently. They're like, "No, please drink this Kool-Aid." And I'm sorry, round peg, but the hole is square. So you need to figure out how to become square. So when everyone else in the room is thinking the same way, that means their communication is happening in a different and better way because I like my thinking is nope, very different, and it does can create that isolation. It doesn't create, if there's no intentionality around like raising up the divergent voice so that they can be heard and understood, and with the realization that there's power in that difference of how they're thinking, it becomes very isolating and very frustrating because it's kind of like we're waiting for our turn, or we're waiting for everyone else to catch up, and eventually they do, but we got there faster, right? It's frustrating.
Well, I'm curious for anyone who's listening right now. If you're watching this maybe on our YouTube channel, comment below and let us know, have you felt frustrated at work because you think differently? And if so, what's that been like for you? Because we want to keep this dialogue going even after the episode is out. So let us know,
Hmm.
and feel free to connect with us or uh, give us your thoughts on it. But yes, so I can absolutely relate. But yeah, keep going to the number two.
Number two, we socialize for different reasons.
Mm.
We don't socialize to socialize. We socialize about the work. So the barrier that puts up, we've all heard the term like the best widget maker gets the promotion to widget maker supervisor, right? Baked into that though is the most social widget maker gets promoted to widget maker supervisor. So it's not just about the best from a talent standpoint. It's also about the fact that career progression is also a social interaction. And so when you socialize differently, you are cut off from the typical social norms within the workplace, which then again gets you labeled as different, weird, not top talent, whatever the word is, however they're experiencing that difference. It roadblocks you to career progression. And I don't care if it's lateral moves, I don't care if it's up the ladder that you're trying to achieve. But when you don't have a social network around you that is singing your praises when you're not in the room, you don't get advanced. You get left behind, or you get ignored, or you get marginalized, or you get put in the corner, or you get cut off from anything that could be advancing your career.
And you mentioned
So,
something that I think it's so important. Career progression. I want to make sure I got it right. Career
mhm.
progression is a social. How did you phrase
I
that?
don't
Like,
know.
yeah,
I mean, but it's a social relationship. I mean,
yeah,
without
right,
social
right.
relationships, you don't progress in your career. And so for those of us who socialize differently or with for different reasons, we can be cut off.
And this resonates in such a big way for me because what's interesting is every time that I was in a corporate role, I mean, I identify with both of these points.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Thinking differently, but then also I love being social. I love learning about people, but usually because found myself perpetually behind, like trying to play catch up every day, that I didn't really want to socialize about surface level things.
Right.
Like I didn't care how somebody's kid's soccer game went. I just it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm trying to survive in this
Yep.
job, so like, yeah, I can't do that right now. Um, so anyway, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For whatever, whatever, however that need for socialization or lack of need for socialization pops up, right? If it's not in the typical way, then you become part of the out group. You're not part of the in
Hmm.
crowd. You're the out group. And
Yes,
the out group doesn't get care, love, and feeding when it comes to career development.
totally. Was there any other things, or were those like the two?
Those were the two big ones. The other big one was what I'll call it. Well, it's not just me calling it. It's actually got a real name. It's called multipotentiality.
Oh.
Multipotentiality is, when you unpack it, it means they have multiple ways that they could be successful. They have multiple potentials. So you could have someone who's, you know, gifted at language arts, gifted at math, and gifted at, artistic expression. So they could be a writer, they could be, a CEO or a CFO, or they could go make pottery.
Hmm.
It's the idea, this multipotentiality, what I saw in the participants in my study and continue in conversations to hear this thread, is they have what I call portfolio careers. So when they're young, the multipotentiality pops up as like, oh my God, I have to pick just one career. And I tell them, no, you don't. I'm telling my son right now, just pick your first career because you're going to have more. It's fine. Um, they usually have early career convergence, which means they have decided on that first or single or whatever career much earlier than most high school students do, or college students when they finally figure it out. Um, but then what happens is over the course of their lives, they have portfolio careers, and they are usually wildly different career fields. It's pretty understandable for somebody to go from, I went from selling insurance to, I went back and got my accounting. Usually there's transferable skills, or there's some sort of content thread throughout that career progression, or some of those, career lattice moves. But at least for gifted folks, they have a thirst for learning and knowledge, and they become very fast experts, and then they're bored. They're like, well, I
Right.
guess I'm done here. And now I'm going to go over here. And I mean, I'm trying to think. I had a woman who went from being like an admin assistant to then like training other admin assistants on this newfangled thing called the computer. And when Microsoft first came out, she was training people on how to use like the first version of Microsoft. Um, and then she told me the story, and it was hilarious. She's like, Nicole, I couldn't go back there again. And I honestly, on the way to work, pictured whether or not I was going to wreck my car so I didn't have to go into work. I was like, I hope you just turned around. She's like, I did. And then she went into software development. Okay. Like, those are kind of different. I had one woman who was the first female taxi driver in the city of Pittsburgh, and then she was a disc jockey. Okay. But they
Whoa.
they get kind of
Yeah.
to the end of a road. Yeah, all over. And they get bored and they
Yeah.
pick up on something else, and they go run with that until they get to the end of that, and then they go pick up something else. And so they do have this multipotentiality that results in a portfolio career. And what a lot of folks who that was kind of the way their life was unfolding or had unfolded, they had some degree of like, am I just an aimless loser? I was like, Aimless loser.
Mm,
Like, no. Like, I gave it a name. I'm like, it's a portfolio career. It's fine. So I don't know if that's something that, pops up for your listeners and their careers too, but that idea of portfolio careers and kind of bouncing around um, is a thing.
I've not heard of that before. We talked about it previously, but just for the listeners, because you just said it there in like the last sentence. So can you maybe just open up like what's the definition of a portfolio career?
When you are when you have multiple careers that really aren't related to each other. When you kind of are like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm like bored. I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I'm going to go do this. And for me, I started out with a bachelor's degree in psychology, graduated college, was managing residential facilities for folks with mental health or mental retardation. I was like, and I became the medication administration trainer. I'm like, oh, I like this. I'm going back to school and going to be a teacher, and went and got a teaching certification. Worked with school districts for a couple of years, never got hired as a teacher because I wanted to teach psychology and social studies. And oh, by the way, I don't coach a sport. And that's usually what social studies teachers did back in the 90s, early 2000s. And then
Nice.
I was like, well, I'll go get a master's in adult and community education because I was teaching GED. Great, love that. Then I got into adult like training and development, and then I found this thing called IO Psych and went back and got a doctorate in that. So some relation, but if you think about some of the actual jobs, not really. And now here we are.
Got it. So, Dr. Nicole, you mentioned something earlier about if you're autistic,
Hmm.
the lights might be a no go.
Yep.
We haven't talked about this yet on the podcast, and I think it's really important. Can you tell us what is the environment, the actual physical space that people are in? What does that have to do with anything?
Well, for folks with autism, too much light, too much noise, too much heat, too much. You need to. They can be triggers, and they can basically need a respite space. And that's the other question: do you have respite rooms for your folks? Do they have to ask for them, or are they kind of available and they know where they're at? Um, so understanding where too much of something is going to affect your neurodivergent employees, it becomes important too. Um, I know there are some employers who in the past who are like, you can't wear headphones at work. You have me sitting in cubicle land and you expect me to focus without headphones? Interesting request. How's that going to work?
I've told this story before that first day of one of my new jobs, and they
Hmm.
brought me to the workstation and said, okay, Ryan, this is where you're going to work. And it was a cubicle farm. And I was
Hmm.
right on the main walkway with the printer about an arm's length away, the one printer for the entire floor. So
Hmm.
anytime anybody printed anything, or when anyone had to go to the bathroom, they were going by my desk.
Oh, dear
Um,
Lord.
yeah. So that was not very good. That's when I first got these headphones, actually, the Bose Quiet Comfort headphones. But what else should organizations, business leaders be thinking about when it comes to planning physical office space?
Well, we talked about kind of dimmer, non-fluorescent lighting. Depending on, if you're putting, say, fine, let's pretend like we get out of cubicle land. Let's pretend like everybody embraces that. We know it's not going to happen, but we can pretend, right? So
Hmm.
now we're talking, okay, everybody's got a dedicated office with a door. You also need to think about, and yes, we would all love windows. Okay, great. We have windows. Where are the windows facing? What's going on outside of that window? Can I pull a blind on that window if the light's too much? If the heat's too much? How can I, if it's noisy, if my window's facing the highway and it's noisy, can I request a different office? So being able to work with people and just let them state the need that they have, um, And I encourage employers to do it without it being like this whole like, please go submit the ADA reasonable accommodation form. Like, that's great that you have that, and I get it, you should. But when it comes to like, are we really gonna do this over office space? If I just explain to you like, hey, I don't work well next to a noisy road. Some people might, and it might be something that occupies their brain and they can deal with it. It might be an issue for some folks. Um, yeah. So what else? I'm looking at my audit sheet here. Um, Flexible, what I'll call it workforce systems too. So this might be, hey, how many days a week? The dreaded remote work topic, right? Like,
Yeah.
return to office, everybody. That you might need to open up to some hybrid arrangements with folks.
Hmm.
And again, if it's good for one person, it's probably, or someone with a special need in your workplace, it's probably a good thing to offer all your employees, just because not everybody is the social, wants to be in the office 5 days a week. Some people are great, they can show up 5 days a week. Some people aren't great, don't show up 5 days a week. So having that flexibility also in arrangements.
And here's the other thing that I would say to business leaders out there that are listening, or even people who are part of the workforce, is what this all comes down to, what it's always comes down to, are the results. Like,
Mhm.
results get respect. Businesses are looking for output from employees. So if getting a reasonable adjustment or having a workspace where maybe you could close the door or you could have a window or you could have more natural lighting or whatever,
Mhm.
it's all within the context of being able to perform your job. This is not just for everyone to be sunshine and rainbows. This is for people to be able to show up, be their authentic self, and do the best work they can in this
Mhm.
position. And speaking of, Dr. Nicole was talking about the audit. If you are not sure if your workplace is compliant or if it could be more accessible and inclusive, let us know, because Dr. Scott and I would love to schedule
Yeah.
a time to meet with you, to come out to your organization. We want to start rolling that out as part of the neuro inclusion program that I offer, and I plan on teaming up with Dr. Scott to do these things. So let us know. These are the hard questions that as business leaders you should be asking. So, Dr. Nicole, for just kind of like bringing it all together here, yes, physical environment's important. Yes, people think differently. Let's just like distill it down for anyone who's listening. Like, what are the positives of having neurodivergent thinkers, whether that is autistic, ADHD, or someone who's in the gifted category? Why should business leaders want someone like this on their team?
Diversity of thought is the how you get to the best performance. There is nothing more dangerous than similar group think, because then everybody's like, oh yeah, we all said the same thing. We got this. We know the right answer. But if you are sitting in a room full of people who think differently, or at least have one or two folks who in there who think differently, and it's a psychologically safe environment for them to poke holes in what you think you know and to give you an alternate perspective, you're going to walk away with a better outcome, a better decision. um, it's just hands down. So just looking at, why would you want neurodiverse thinkers on your team? Studies by Deloitte and Boston Consulting Group actually showed that cognitive diversity boosts innovation revenues by 20%. Right? Who doesn't want 20% more in revenue? I don't know. I do. Companies like JP Morgan and SAP found that neurodiverse employees were up to 48% more productive than their neurotypical peers in certain roles. And neurodiverse teams often optimize workflows by creating efficient norms and introducing creative alternatives to getting to the goal. So those are just a couple of tidbits. I want 20% more revenue. I want 48% better productivity. And oh, you want to optimize my my workflows? Like, let me say no to that. So there's real power in opening up and embracing the strengths that come with neurodivergence instead of just focusing on, we have to make accommodations or they're different or like, oh, I don't know how to get along with someone different than me. Well, let's embrace neurodiversity as a real powerhouse and a game changer for businesses, um, because they're already working for you. You just don't know it, and they
Exactly.
might be your hidden talent that if, again, open it up, have a psychologically safe workplace, they might unmask.
I love that. So, if you are an employee and you feel like you are a little bit outcast, you're on the outside looking in, please feel free to join the digital community, the RMC digital community. We have hundreds of people that are part of the community. They're from all over the world. And this is a psychologically safe space where you can come in to share your wins, to share your challenges, to seek resources. So we would love to have you. And also, you can check out the links below in the show description to get more free resources from my website. And we'll be sure that in the show notes, that we are getting you the links to some of Dr. Nicole's work. And I have a sneaking suspicion you might hear about her more often here on the show. But Dr. Nicole, if anyone wants to learn more about you, where can they go to find that?
thedrnicole.com or evoexec.com.
Are there any final thoughts that you'd want to share with the audience as takeaways or anything else for them to be thinking about in this space?
I would love the folks listening on this show who are neurodivergent, embrace it and start taking stock of the powerhouse that you are, the brain power that you bring, the value of those different thoughts, and work to communicate them. Take a risk every now and then, see what happens. Find a fellow employee that can be, your safe space to bounce ideas off of, and how do I communicate this so that it lands? Because, it feels risky sometimes to be the different person in the room. But I'm a strengths-based coach. I like to look at what is the positive that's coming, what are the strengths that are being brought to the table, and let's use them instead of keeping them buried and tucked away, because up until now it hasn't been a safe place to share them.
And on that note, I'll say that we were it was such a pleasure to have the Dr. Nicole on the show. And also, just as a reminder, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do that. Please drop comments below and share this with someone who you think might need to hear it. The more people we can reach, the more that we can inspire and we can drive the change.
Mm-hmm.
I know at Ryan Mayer Coaching, I always like to say we help adults with ADHD to break free from careers and lifestyles that are draining you and step into a life of purpose, because life is way too short to have jobs that you despise. And I speak from experience on that. So please check out our How to Find Work That Works for Your ADHD course. You can check out the masterclass on the website, ryanmayercoaching.com. And as always, know that you are more than your ADHD. And I believe in you. Thanks, Dr. Nicole. And
Thank
we'll
you.
talk to you soon.